Ágætu gestir, dear guests. First of all, I would welcome our Norwegian guest from the Norwegian Water Resource and Energy Directive, NVE. We have here 6 presentations and quite a large group from Norway. Thanks a lot. And also welcome to other guests here. The topics is one of the anniversary conferences that Orkustefna is holding this year because of 50 years anniversary. This time the focus is on Norwegian energy policy and what people are doing there regarding energy activities. There's a lot of cooperation between Iceland and Norway in the field of energy because of many factors. There's a Nordic cooperation, of course. There's a EEA agreement cooperation. Norway and Iceland is part of the internal market, and therefore we are incorporating a lot of directives and law regulation from the European Union as a part of the internal market, and therefore we need a cooperation with our partners within EFTA. And there's also cooperation in other fields, part of the EEA agreement, maybe also in the area of EEA grants. Both Norway and Iceland is providing EEA grants to some poorer part of Europe, especially in Eastern Europe. And there's a cooperation between us regarding renewable energy, which is always higher and higher on the agenda on this time of climate change concerns. But there's a lot of speakers today, a lot of issues, a lot of very interesting topics. So to start, I just welcome here, first of all, Mari Hægg Gundersen. She will speak about the policy instrument in Norway. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I think we have invited ourselves to come here, and we're very happy that you could arrange this and would like to listen to us. And of course, we're here to learn from you, first of all. And for us, Iceland is a very interesting country. It's a lot like Norway. It's a renewable country. We have a lot of common interests, and we're both small countries in the European community, or in Europe. So the more we cooperate and the more we stand together, we can have a stronger voice. So I'm just going to introduce you to the Norwegian Water Resources and Energy Directorate, which is where we all come from. And it has a long title. The short is NVE. So I just thought I would tell you what's the responsibilities of NVE. And our department is the Energy System Department. And our unit is called the Policy Instrument Unit in NVE. So this is NVE. It's located in our head office, located in Oslo. We are sort of like your organization, Orkustefna, which I am practicing saying. Your director said you were like a Swiss army knife. And I think we are sort of the same. We have a lot of responsibilities, except from the oil and gas. And therefore we also have a lot of departments. We are around 600 employees in NVE. We are the directorate under the Petroleum and Energy Ministry in Norway. Our boss is Per Sanderud. And we have, as I said, 7 departments, everything from licensing power plants and power lines to hydrology. We have a department that watching out for landslides and rocks falling. I don't know if you have seen the Wave, the movie, but that's also our responsibility to make sure that the rocks don't fall into the fjords and make large waves. But we also we are the regulator for the power markets in Norway, and our department is is the analysis department. So what we do, we supervise the ministry in all energy questions. We supervise the other departments in NVE. We also have regulations that we are responsible for, and we also collect a lot of data, especially data that influence our power system. So when it comes to regulation and supervision, it's a lot of EU directives is our responsibility. Energy labeling, which you will hear more about later, the Eco-Design Directive. We are responsible for the certificate scheme, which is the support scheme we have together with Sweden. We also work on the guarantees of origin, which I know we have a common interest with Iceland. We are the same strange country which export most of our guarantees to Europe. We also look after the power situation and make sure that we know if we have a stressed power situation. We do power system planning, and we also look after the trade on the cables. Our analysis is we do analysis on all power projects and all cable projects and all power lines in Norway to see if it is economic feasible to give the licenses. We also follow the technology costs, and we do analysis like last year when the ministry made a white paper on the energy system. We were a large contributor on all the analysis. And as I said, we also collect data, especially hydrological data, to make sure we know what's going on in the power system so we can foresee power shortage. But our unit, we're 10 people, and our responsibility is the EU directives, Eco-Design, energy labeling of products, and the Renewables Directive. We also help the minister to report on the Renewables Directive every second year. And due to the Renewables Directive, we have this common support scheme with Sweden called the certificate scheme, and it's our unit that takes care of that. We give licenses to the plants that can be into the system, and we also have a very close connection to Sweden when it comes to regulate the system. Yes, and that's us, all of us. And we feel we have a large responsibility. We know that you on Iceland are very few people on very large directives. We feel the same way, but we still know that we are always twice as many as you when we meet in Brussels. So therefore I'd like to say again that we really like to cooperate with you. Every time we go to Brussels, we feel we almost always have the common interest. And another thing we do, our task is to follow what's going on in Brussels, and especially on energy and climate policy. So the winter package has been a large task for us the last couple of months. So that was my introduction, and then I leave the floor to the expert on the master plan, Torod. You're next.
Don't want any questions?
Questions?
Are there any questions to Marie? Artisans? Always interest? If not, then thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Please.
Thank you. I'll see if I can end slideshow, is it? No. I need your assistance, Baldur. Yeah, it's work. Okay. Just to say something on the electricity certificate market that actually that has contributed to financing of some of the schemes that we identified through this master plan. So, and I will mention this also because it is what we have learned after that master plan is that actually financing takes 1/3 of the development time, lead time. So, and that was not a big issue in our master plan. This is a short presentation because normally these presentations are 3 to 4 and each of them are 1 hour. So it cannot be like that. Do I need to? Okay. You must now remember, we are 35 years back. And the Norwegian master plan started not empty. We had, before that, we had a lot of studies focusing on economy and technology only. That gave the politicians an understanding what are the Norwegian options for hydro development. And so this is written in Norwegian, some of it, but it's actually the name, Studieselskapet for Noregs Vannkraft, that is a name. And they operated during 5 years, mainly after in that period where we actually were developing the country after the Second World War. And we also established a resource unit in '62, and that is still there in NVE today, but now it is much smaller part of it. And then consequently it was several plans. All these studies, all this individual understanding of the different schemes were taken into the master plan that started in 1982. And what we did in the small hydropower, we developed methodology to come up with cost manuals. That was for small hydro, up to 10 megawatt. And that knowledge from that work, we used to develop cost manuals for all kind of hydro, the micro hydro, the small hydro, and the very large, which is still in use today. I'll come back to this. So we were not empty-handed when we started, but we never had focused especially on environmental constraints. Because during the late 70s, actually it started in the late 60s, but the 70s especially, we had a lot of protest against large hydro development. And this is illustrated here. This is the known Alta scheme in the Finnmark county in northern Norway. It was a lot of things said from NGOs, which was not true, and it was also something said from the developer, which was not true. But NVE was the body that gave the license for that plant. So it was building up a system of understanding that we needed really to calm this down. And then the master plan with the goal to present to the parliament a proposal for priority grouping, not exactly that this scheme should be developed and this not, but these schemes in this certain group can be sent for license handling, which not necessarily meant that they should be developed, but they could be handled by NVE. And it started in '91. It was completed the first phase, because it was many schemes, in '85. And 3 years later it was revised, and then another 5 years it was the third revised in 1993, and it didn't stop in 93, but the main work was in that 10-year period between, or 12, between 1981 and 1993. It was 12 years. And it was organized in a very special way. I have a lot of slides on this that are hidden. It's in the presentation, but I will not show it here, because that is a very important part, how to organize it so that you actually get a very strong political backing on what you are doing. And I would say many of the slides I will show later show results. There are many workshops, many meetings, lot of site visits behind all this. So it was quite a lot of work that included a lot of people, and most Norwegian consulting companies. And we were lucky, because I don't think NVE ever will have that much money to do these kind of studies again. But we did really had no problem with money. So we did what we thought was the best. But it was governed by the Ministry of Environment. That had a special story. I will not come back to that, but originally it should be the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, but it ended up with the Ministry of Environment due to some reasons. That is another presentation. But we also included the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health and Social Affairs, Ministry of Local Government, and Regional Development. But these guys were not, they were allowed to sit there, but they could not vote, but the people from the finance department. We had 3 phases. The first, we included that number of schemes that you see there, roughly 40 terawatt-hour capacity. But in the first phase, we also took out some of the large hydropower schemes so that they could be built, because we understood this would take some years, and Norway needed power at that time, so we needed something to happen. So parallel with this plan, it was also a lot of hydro developed, and that was large hydro. One of them is well known. It was Ullafjørður, which has the biggest reservoir in Europe. It's around 8 terawatt-hours in one reservoir. And there's several others. The phase 2 included a lot of small hydro, taken from that previous study I showed from 78. We focused then mainly on small hydro up to 10 megawatts. So, and unlike in Iceland today, we started including all hydro with capacity over 1 megawatt. Everything was in. And then the phase 3 included a study on all the old hydropower plants, because even at that time it was quite many that were old. It's a little strange to think that today the plants that were built in early 80s, today they are 35 years old, and they are ready for new studies. We'll come back to that. But this was what we could call the phase 1 was the greenfield, large hydro. Then the phase 2 was the greenfield, small hydro. And then phase 3 was the upgrading, refurbishment of the old large hydro. And quite many projects, quite many alternatives. Most projects had more than one alternative. It was a feasibility study that was done, gave a good understanding of the cost for the plant, a good understanding of what kind of electricity could be generated, and also, of course, gave a good understanding on the environmental impact, which were developed by 6 different groups. So I will And then you can say, why did we already from the beginning plan to have a revision? And that was because we saw that the data we had when we started planning were not good, but we need to use what we had. But of course, especially in this period, we used old German maps from the war. So during that first decade, it was developed new maps, and that come up with new kind of thinking. We could plan in a different way. We got much better hydrology data, which is of course very important for hydro. And it was a technology upgrading, technology innovations. And it were a new user group coming up. For example, canoeing in some rivers, and more tourist groups also. The fish has always been there, but now they are coming new conflicts. And then it's a new market. And then it started already in the late 80s actually to introduce solar and wind in the system. But at that time it was more or less like we have today in Iceland. We had very little wind. But we did have a lot of solar, but that was in the cottages. Actually, at that time, Norway had more solar electricity generated than other countries in Europe because of the remote location of the small cottages. What was the strength with this was that it was a unified planning and assessment of procedures. We developed a methodology for not only for the cost estimates but also for how each of the schemes should be presented. So we forced consultants to follow that manual so that we easily could recognize the plant, and also for the people that worked with the environmental impacts easily knew where are this, for example, where are the dam presented, how is it presented, how are the waterway, if it's for example a penstock. So they knew on which page they could find information. We needed to have this system unified in a way that it would be easy for us to work afterward. And also NVE did roughly 1/3 of the planning. We didn't put all of it 100% to the consultants. We did some of it ourselves. I mentioned the unified cost estimating system. They were forced to use it, and actually today it's still in use. But it's continuously updated. Every 5 years we update it. And it was the same expert group, more or less during those 10, 12, at least the 10 first years, it was more or less the same people working with this. So that was also a strength. We didn't choose too much. And then we have the classification system. I'll come back to that because that was a headache. All schemes are presented like this. This is one in the middle of Norway, I just took one. And it was listed up what are the impacts for the wildlife, the fish, nature, tourism, and so on. And they were given some scores, bad or good. Very seldom it was good, but it was normally a question of how bad would it be. And of course we also had the economy ranked in. It ended up in this matrix. Because we wanted to, as I said, we wanted to have a category 1 where these plants located in category 1, they can be, you can take that plan and you can send a license application to NVE and it will be handled. You could not do that with the category 2 and category 3. Category 3 was those schemes that were in rivers that were had a lot of constraints with the environment. Trouble with this is that we didn't, and I must say this was many workshops, many discussions, but it ended up, okay, we compared dog and cats. Small, and one small was equal to one large. Not exactly, but it started to that way. So all the cheap, large hydro with large reservoirs, one reservoir obviously have much more environmental impact than one small hydro without reservoir. So all these had ended there. And then we got, it was easy to see that it would be a complaint by some politicians, and it come. So we, after everything was done, we had to sit together, we worked together we were locked in a hotel for more or less for 2 months. And we went through all the plans and did some shifting, because we couldn't live with small hydro and regulated, and the large hydro with the regulation. So, but we used it as a working tool. So it looks simple, it was not. And we would not I don't think we would do the same thing today. But at the end, because we were able to sit together and discuss and be some reason, have some good discussions. It was not negative. Not much quarreling. A couple of times between some people from the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Environment, but normally it was very, 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 very positive discussion. So we ended up with I think, a good plan. And afterwards, we could see that the positive experience is that actually levels of conflicts on hydro development in Norway were reduced. We used the information not only from the technical and economical planning, but also the environmental impacts on different issues in the licensing system. We definitely managed to have all stakeholders very good involved, and that included also NGOs. And it was transparent and easy to understand the methodology once you read it. Everyone saw it was not perfect. Definitely it was not perfect, but it gave a result. And a lot of conservation plans, especially number 4, could directly use the work. And these are all the plans later on also. You have number 4 here. Part of it, number 3, because that were decided in 86, also use it, but especially number 4. And then also the 2 coming later in 2005 and 2009. They have used all this information even 25 to 30 years after. So, and today, if you look at the Norwegian map, if I can remember correctly, I think the figure is more or less exactly 66% of the total Norwegian surface that is conserved. 66%, not including Spitsbergen. But of course, a lot of this area is in the northern part. For example, in Finnmark County, that county is bigger than Denmark. So there are not necessarily in many of these areas a lot of hydro potential. But 66% of Norway is actually conserved in national parks and in these plants. So we do have some rivers that are untouched. We learn very quickly, strong political backing is a must. And then social and local economic impacts must be included. We had, to start with, too little of that, so it was included later, but it should have been more elaborated. Regional economy, is proved to be very important, because in Norway we have this system that actually if you develop a hydropower plant, you must give something back to the local community. And some of the local communities in Norway are very rich because they have accepted hydro development. Others have conserved the river, and they are unfortunately on the other side of the scale. They are, well, some of them are very, very poor. And as I said, some of the projects that were listed as very acceptable actually was not at all acceptable for the developers, because it was too expensive and didn't give the power they needed. And it was, as I mentioned, also a problem to compare small and large scale projects. So we concluded on this, that is a must. I think I can go back. I will say that today, a couple of years ago, the master plan was finally buried, because time, 35 years is a long time. A lot of new information is on table, and the old products could not govern the policy anymore. But we use still the information that are in the written papers. Some years before that, we ended with the same conclusion that you have in Iceland, that all schemes less 10 megawatt were taken out of the plan, but the large hydro was there. But as I said, today it's all gone. Doesn't mean that it's easier to develop hydro, but I also would say that since 10 years back, we have had a shift in Norway, saying that large hydro especially, is not wanted. I would say it's now a more balanced debate going on, because we see that also large wind farms have impacts on the environment, and we are not the best country in Europe on solar energy, even if we have something, not the best place for that technology. And we do have a lot of bioenergy, but also bioenergy have some troubles. And then hydro is there, and then it comes this new trend also with the climate change. One of the products, as I mentioned, we developed cost estimates for all this, also the civil works, but these are the electromechanical part of a hydropower plant in principle: turbine, generator, transformer, the control systems, and the transformation. All we have maintained this. Each year we will develop the manuals. We use it for working abroad. We use it for all licensing work in Norway, and most of the Norwegian consultants also use it for the pre-feasibility study level. So that is something that goes on. These are the latest. It's it's the price level of 2015. So it's the one we use now. But and we have found that extremely useful, because now we have more than 30 years of experience by using it, and we can see that it actually is quite good. Then the new studies, we will use all what we have done in the past. And there will be more rain in Norway. This is from NIVA, so it's not me then saying that. I think it's not 100% correct, these figures. That's nice why it's not NV, but it's NIVA. But anyway, the picture is correct. It will be a lot more rain coming in Norway. It will be a lot more changing in temperature. That will give impacts to the rivers, especially rivers with glacier. and will have a change in evaporation. It might be drier summers, so it will have an impact in the river flow, and hydro is in rivers, so it will impact hydro. So it calls more or less for a new study alone. And then you have the new market with the VRE, variable renewable energy, and linked to the transmission or the cables to the northern part of Europe. And we also have another thing. We have carried on with large research programs. Cedren is one that was completed last year, actually, with the final work this winter. A new one has started. But we do know much more about how are the impacts on hydro. What can we do with it to reduce the impacts? We have much, much better knowledge today than 30 years ago. So more or less everything has changed. And we have this cake, you can read that later yourself, that has continuously been growing by some reason, I don't know why. But this green here is not studied, so it's probably might be bigger, but because once you conserve an area, you don't do any studies anymore. And then there are some reasons for success. I will just go down here. It's a lot of hard work. You need some luck and enthusiasm, and as I said before, enough money. It's more than nice to have enough money in this kind of work, but it is a very good tool for the politicians to plan for the future, and that's what they wanted. And these are the pictures. We produced a short version in English, so if you don't have it, I can try to find it. There are not many left, but at least one could be possible. This is, I'm not quite sure if it's a small hydro, but it's around 10 megawatt. I think it's a little bit more than 110, but that is one of the schemes in that master plan. It was identified in roughly 35 years ago, and it was inaugurated 2 years ago. So it's a long lead time for even a small hydro in Norway, but it's a nice one. It's a new design. Looks like something else, but it's not a waterfall. Thank you. That's
Thank you for that. I suppose there are quite many questions, because Norway has a long experience in this area, lot of lessons learned.
I suppose, Balder, you will give them the presentations, and that includes more, as I said, than what I said now.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
You said you were evaluating projects that had more than one alternatives.
Yeah.
I guess you evaluated the alternatives separately. So if the biggest one was not acceptable, there might be another option that was acceptable.
Yeah, we did it the way that, for example, one scheme could have one solution with diverting of water from a neighbor river. That was with and without that one. It could be several reservoirs, 1 or 3, that was calculated, and it was also another siting for the power station. So in certain cases we actually had up to 5 different alternatives, and all were in this matrix.
So you evaluated all of them and ranked them into different categories?
Yeah. And they all were done up to what we call the pre-feasibility study level, and we know from afterwards, that's why I could dare to say that these cost estimates are quite good, because we know from afterwards where the scheme has been developed, that the cost estimates actually were quite good. We hit the nail between some plus minus 10%. It was actually more. Hydrology is plus minus 20%. So yes.
And can I ask one more? If you had evaluated an option, an alternative into, or a project into category 3, which means it's not going to happen, right? Would it then later perhaps be revisited with another alternative and then possibly evaluated into another category?
I think in most cases, because of course when you have several alternatives, that are the large hydro. The small is very often not a need for that. But in most cases for the small hydro, what we have seen afterwards is that in most cases the developer has taken those with the less environmental impacts and worked in detail with that. But there are other examples also where you have more where actually they are turning back and made it a little bigger. But that is based on more detailed knowledge. And as I said, if we had done this study today, we would know much more what could be the compensation in the rivers. So we could, as we say now today, we can have more power and more salmon. So it is possible. But of course you must accept that you do something with the environment, and that you will have to accept for any kind of technology you use for energy consumption.
Any other questions?
Yeah, could you explain a little bit better about the categories? I understand that it was not really protection, the category B, it was not for license. What's the difference?
Yeah, the difference, the first category was, let's see if we find it, it was here somewhere, there. The first category was all plants that ended here. You can see here, these are the economy. These down here are the most expensive. And if they at the same time were unregulated, then they were not of interest at all for the hydropower development. But it could be up here with very low cost, but still not good, or let's say a sustainable generation capacity. But then it would still be interesting. And all this category 1 was all plants that ended here. They were subject, if you were owner of one of these plants, you must remember we had a close cooperation with all the hydropower developers, all the owners of the waterfalls and so on. All these owners could then take that plan, a feasibility study, produce an application for a license and send it to NV. That was, and NV would handle it. If you were in category 2, you could still, of course, it was up to you to try to get it out of the category 2 and into the 1, to do some modifications so you reduce the environmental impacts or improve the economy, because you can see here, if you are in 6, you could come up in 5 if you improve the economy a little bit. But then you will not have any guarantee that you can have this application handled in MVE. You had to get it out of category 2 to category 1. Well, those are in category 3. They must do something very different. But as I said, for the category 3, many of these watercourses or these power stations in watercourses, they were handled in the conservation plans, like the number 4 and 5, and are today, these rivers are today conserved. but still some of them are left. But at that time we didn't include too much on the flood protection. We didn't include much of we didn't have the knowledge on water flow, and we didn't have the knowledge on hydrology changing like we have now. So, and also the markets with the need for meeting the balancing in the variable renewable energy. So today, maybe some of these will be developed, maybe. But at that time, all schemes that ended here could not be developed, could not be planned. Well, you are free to plan, but that's a waste of money. So category 1 was the schemes that you could, and it was quite many schemes here. So what we said was that, okay, you can start there. You can take the low-hanging fruit first. You don't need to use much effort to work on what is more or less impossible. So it was, that I think was also the reason why the complaints were not that very hard, because it was quite a lot of schemes that were of interest in the category 1. So, but I will say, okay, it had. I don't think you can do a work like that and so that everyone is happy. But I think we really lifted the knowledge on the Norwegian watercourses. We did get a lot of very nice watercourses conserved for the future, and we got some planning and development of hydro that maybe if the old system had been going on, maybe it would not look that nice. So it was an overall improvement, but it's not perfect.
Okay, anyone else, please?
My name is Linda. You mentioned that large areas were protected in the aftermath. In what time frame did you protect it? Was it 10, 20 years, or was it done?
It's not a time frame like that, but it's said that until another decision taken in the Norwegian Parliament, and I think it will, in practice, it could be that it will be discussed in, let's say, for example, now, if you, for example, took one watercourse and said now in June that it should be taken out of the conservation plans, it would be the next parliament from we have an election this autumn that would have to take that decision. And I think the practice is that then it will rest for the 4 years, and then the next parliament again would make the final one. So it is a long, long way to go. But then again, there are uncertainties here. That we know there are rivers that are heavily impacted by flood, and with the risk of losing life, with the risk of losing a lot of buildings and so on. So in a few cases, it might be that this way of working will be changed that's because something happened with the environment. It is part of the climate change.
Okay, anyone else?
Maybe very short regarding the climate change issue. How earlier on, 30 years back, then the climate change issue was not so high on the agenda as now. And the renewables are quite important contributors to mitigating climate change. How is that taken into account in environmental assessment?
Definitely that would include another issue. And as I said, we never included that kind of thinking at that time. So, and it was also not, at that time it was also the thermal power. At that time, we also had the acid rain from UK. So a lot of things have happened during these 3 to 4 decades since we started with the master plan. So, but I guess it would look different.
Okay, thank you very much, Torot. And next on the agenda here is Kristi Hind Fagerlund, and she will talk about eco-design and energy labeling. Kristi, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I will give you a short presentation on how the NVE follows up the policy implementing process on, under the Eco-Design Directive and Energy Labeling Directive. Let's see. Huh? Vänta, shut down och sign.
Continue.
Yes, that's one. This one first.
12,
12, yes. The Ministry of Petroleum and Energy has delegated the following up of the 2 directives to NVE. That means that we are in charge of nearly everything. We take part in the legislative processes in Brussels, and we undertake the market surveillance of the finished regulations in Norway afterwards. I'm working with the policy implementing processes, I mean the legislative processes in Brussels. So I will only talk about that, how we work. And Tale will, after me, talk about market surveillance in Norway. First, about the staff. We are 2 persons working 100% on the policy processes. It's Ingvild, she's sitting there, just started. This is her 3rd day at the NVE. And it's me, 100%. And then we get some help from other units in the NVE, and that's William and Christer. In addition, we have a frame contract with the Danish consultant consortium, and that is Vigan and Norge and Dansk Teknologisk Institute. So they help us to read the working papers from Brussels, to understand and also to write positions. Let's see. I will jump straight to the products we have prioritized, because in the new working plan for the period 2016 to 2019, there will be 45 ongoing product policy processes, and we cannot follow all of them. So we have to focus on certain products, and then we have to choose those products we think is important for Norway. And I just want to show you here which products we have prioritized for the period we are within now. It's the revision of the water heater regulation. It's the revision of the power transformer regulation. There's also a revision of local space heaters. There will be a revision of ventilation units. And I continue on the PV panels and inverters, windows, smart appliances, professional washing machines and dryers and dishwashers. Yes, those are the products we have prioritized. And the reason for prioritizing those is, first of all, the water heaters. As you maybe know, large water heaters, direct acting electric water heaters, will be banned from the single market or the EEA market from the 26th of September 2018. As you maybe know, electric heating is very common in Norway, and we have a lot of direct acting electric water heaters. They are quite important in Norwegian buildings. So we have rejected until now to transpose the regulation for water heaters into Norwegian law. And I don't think it's implemented into the EEA agreement yet either. I'm not 100% whether you in Iceland have accepted the regulation, but Norway have not. So, and you can see also there are other reasons for the different products. Power transformers, there are constraints due to geography and infrastructure, heavy transformers, and so on. And local space heaters, we have wood-burning space heaters. We have problems with the emission requirements, and we do not agree with the method for measuring the particles. So we have prioritized that regulation. We want to try to impact on the standards, how you measure the particle emissions. And also the electric local space heaters, we want to follow closely because we use them. That's a very common product in Norway. And in general, the EU Commission has said that they want to decrease, they have an aim to decrease electricity consumption due to, they want to reduce the import of energy to the EU, and they want to reduce the electricity consumption due to the low efficiency at the power plants. They want to reduce the primary energy consumption within the EU. Then they say that if we can use gas directly instead of electricity, we choose that. So, and you can see some of the other arguments, reasons for prioritizing the products. PV panels, we have competence in NVE, and it's a growing market in Norway. Windows, we have a lot of manufacturers in Norway, and we think that maybe we have a Nordic climate that we have to take care of in the legislation. And it's also a project within the Nordic cooperation, Nordsyn. And the 5 Nordic countries have a cooperation on the market surveillance, but also we have a few products within the legislative processes. We try to, we have an aim to collect data and information and maybe prepare a common position in the process, policy process in Brussels. Smart appliances is a very exciting preparatory study going on now. So it's not yet a regulation. And then lastly, we have professional washing machines. And PEF, that means primary energy factor. I don't know whether you are familiar with the use of primary energy factor in the electricity generation in the EU. They punish electricity by you have to multiply the electricity consumption at the consumer with 2.5 to calculate the primary energy use when you use electricity.
So now I want to give you the background. What is our criteria for prioritizing products? These are criteria we laid down in 2011 when we first started on the eco-design work. And we then decided that we would like to prioritize products that alternatively can be run by electricity or fossil fuels. And that's because of this primary energy factor, which punish direct acting electric products. And also products with a special use pattern or which is widely used in Norway. Then at that moment, we were thinking of our fishery and refrigerating equipment. And when we are working with the product, we have to have some considerations, and we have these considerations in the prioritized order. First, we have to look after the Norwegian consumers, and then the Norwegian energy system, and at last, the Norwegian industry. So this is the background for our work. And on the next slide, I will show you our basic arguments in our positions, which we send to the Commission during the policy processes. In general, we don't agree with the use of the primary energy factor, which is 2.5. And we think it's more right to use, if you have to use a primary energy factor on electricity, we should rather use a long-term marginal primary energy factor to take care of the planned renewable generation in the future. They do not build coal plants or fossil fuel plants nowadays. They build renewable energy, and that will be reflected in this long-term marginal PEF. But basically, we are against using a PEF at the electricity for products. We will argue for the survival of direct acting electric heating products, and that's PEF is used in all heating products because the Commission says you can alternatively use gas or heat pumps, of course. But we also see the value of having the direct electric heating products. We also argue for having separate energy efficiency requirements and separate energy labels for different energy carriers and technologies. And to the right there, I've put up an energy label for a water heater. And the water heaters have the same label in the energy labeling regulation for water heaters. They have the same label for water heaters run by gas and water heaters run by electricity, either heat pumps or direct acting electricity. But the result is that a gas-driven water heater can obtain an energy class A, while direct acting water heater, electric water heater, can only obtain the best C or a D. And we think it's better to have separate labels where both gas and electric water heaters can obtain an A in order to stimulate the manufacturers to produce very effective appliances. We think that's a better solution instead of mixing them up in a label. And of course, we argue for ambitious energy efficiency requirements and their reduction of other environmental impacts, which is the basic idea of the Eco-Design Directive. This is the policy process. I don't know whether you can read the small print, but in general, from start to start of work to the start of working on the product regulation to the publishing in the official journal, it takes approximately 3.5 years. And the work starts with a general study where a consultant on behalf of the Commission make a report or study how the product is, the status of the actual product in all the member states. They collect data from Eurostat, other statistical sources, and try to make an overview of the product's status in Europe, the level of technology and how many there are and so on. We have discovered that they seldom take the EEA countries into these studies, and we have reacted and said that they should also include the EEA states, because we are the EEA EFTA states, because we are finally taking the regulation in our internal national laws. So the red circles is showing the phases where we take part in active part in the process. We send in positions, contribute with data, and take part in the meetings, either in the expert meetings or consultation forums, as the formal name is, or in the regulatory committee for the eco-design. But of course we can't vote. The voting is going on in the regulatory committee. So then we have to leave the room when the voting is going on. But we are allowed, and you are also, to meet in the regulatory committee and consultation forum, and to raise your voice and bring forward your position. Just to show you, I said it's approximately 45 products, 45 processes going on at the same time. And it's very difficult to follow them. You have to keep track, and then the Commission doesn't provide the member states with any overview. So we have to make a spreadsheet or an Excel sheet where we have milestones. So this is just a small, I've tried to illustrate how we do it, and we have Excel sheets which is very large with milestones and dates and what we have done and so on. And we use the information from this when we write our EEA fact sheets. I guess you also have to write them for the EEA committee. The new working plan for 2016 to 19 contained approximately 45 products, and 7 of them were completely new. And I just wanted to show you the new types of products the Commission will start working on with a preparatory study in near future. We have lifts, PV panels and inverters, electric kettles, hand dryers, high pressure cleaners, refrigerated containers, and building automation control systems in non-residential buildings. And the blue ones is the one we have prioritized. And circular economy is the new, what to say, it's a new field in the EU Commission, in the EU, and they have pointed at the Eco-Design Directive to be a key directive in the circular economy. And the WE Directive, Article 4, says that points at the Eco-Design Directive and encourages producers and the recyclers to cooperate, how they design the products so they can ease the reuse or the recycling of the products. And the new types of requirements which we will see in the future in the eco-design regulations will be requirements connected to durability, repairability, and reuse and recyclability. And this is a small digression because we in Norway, and I have also said that you have the same in Iceland, but I'm not 100% sure, but you can protest on that if it's wrong. In Norway, we have 5-year claim period for white goods, for instance, for products which is meant to last longer than 2 years. And I think you also have the same in your national law. In EU, there are only 2-year claim period. And we have a project going on in Norway now. It's not started by the NVE, but those responsible for the consumer rights in Norway. They are investigating whether imported goods to Norway have better quality, lasts longer than the same product imported to other countries in the EU. And the reason should be the 5-year contra the 2-year. That the manufacturer, when they produce a washing machine, they think, this washing machine, oh, we are going to sell it to Norway and they have 5 years. Then we have to put in a better water pump. This product is going to, let's say, France. They have a weaker consumer protection. So we put in a bad water pump. And if we get some proof that this is right, then we will use that in the circular economy. We will use it in in our arguments in the policy processes, and also try to influence on this Consumer Act's directive, which is they are discussing that they will take away the possibility to have 5-year claim. But that is a Consumer Act, which is not our responsibility. But everything goes together, so we have to use all information we can. So maybe the EU can learn something from Norway and Iceland on this field. Yes, that's all. Also, I would encourage Iceland, if you would like to take part in the policy processes, maybe we could cooperate. We can, if we have common interests, we can maybe use our, we can ask our consultants if you need some help. And it's, we are encouraged also by our Minister for European Matters to cooperate with the 2 other EEA EFTA states. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristi. And maybe for those of you that maybe there's a coffee outside, and if you maybe have a short break for 5 minutes or so on, that's maybe give some energy. There's a cakes there also, and maybe after 5 minutes, then Charlie Helen, come.
Okay, that's good.
Well, Kristi, so please start your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Tale Seldal, and I am a project member of a little team responsible for surveillance with energy efficiency directives in Norway. First of all, I want to say how glad I am to be back at Iceland. This is my third time here. And actually my first time I was here, I got engaged to be married. So it's a very happy country for me. I came flying to Iceland in 2004 to meet my boyfriend who had been away for a year, sailing all around the northern Atlantic Ocean. So I met him there after a year and I was very happy to see him. We got engaged and I sailed with him back to into the sunset back to Norway. So we never did marry though. We got 2 children. And we started to quarrel every day. We got separated. And just before the summer last year, we went into discussions again, and he took me back to Iceland. And we got back together. So as you see, Iceland is really my magical, mythical country. You do have elves here, don't you? As I said, I am a member of a small team responsible for energy efficiency surveillance in the Department of Energy Systems in NVE. It says here I'm going to talk about energy surveillance. NVE does a lot of energy surveillance in a lot of areas. Amongst them, we are doing surveillance with the construction phase of power plant builders, and we are doing surveillance with electricity network companies. But what I am going to tell you about is the small field of surveillance with energy efficiency. In addition to the 2 directives that Kristi told you about previously, the Energy Labeling Directive and the Eco-Design Directive, my group is also doing surveillance with the Energy Performance Directive for buildings. So we are controlling buildings and products. In order to upscale this surveillance, NVE last year established a project with the mandate to both undertake surveillance and also establish routines in how to do it, in how to do efficient surveillance. We have 1 project leader part-time and we are 3 full-time members, and we have also 1 juridical expert working part-time in the group. In order to strengthen the districts in Norway, a short time ago, just last week actually, the Norwegian government decided that all the positions linked to surveillance in NVE shall be transformed from the main office into the regional offices of Norway. So that will have implications on who are working with surveillance and also how we do it. And due to this decision, we have decided to expand the first project period, that was from August last year to June now, 1 extra year. And the next year we are having focus on establishing the routines firmly, resulting in a written handbook is our ambition, and also establishing a database for more efficient surveillance. We are also undertaking a bit more surveillance, especially on areas that we have not yet done during the fall and spring this year. I'll come back to you about that. What we have checked is the existence. Here we are. As we have finished with the analysis and reactions to the controls done in 2016, I want to use some time telling you about what we did in 2016. During the fall last year, we controlled 40 non-residential buildings. And what we checked there was we checked whether there were energy labels, and also the energy assessments of technical equipment related to heating and air conditioning. At the project area, we have controlled the dealers, how good they are at informing about energy specifications of the products. We have checked there whether the existence of the energy label is that it's there, and also how it is designed and placed in the stores. We have also controlled products on the internet, and in addition to the energy label, we have also controlled the appearance of data sheet. We have not gone into any deeper surveillance. We have not gone into any verification whether the information on the label is correct. Is stated correctly. As you can see on the table, the number of control objects we have controlled is 8 stores, 11 internet shops and 7 commercials. We have controlled the products listed here, light bulbs, washing machines for householdings, vacuum cleaners and televisions. And you see the amount of products that were controlled last year. I'll come back to the findings in a little while. This spring, I forgot to say it on the first slide. We have, in addition to our team, we have money to use on consultants. On the building area, we have the Noregs doing controls for us. And on product side, we have Nemco doing the controls, and then NV take over and do the reactions. Nemco this spring has controlled 16 more shops this year. Well, 8 shops last year, and also 1 commercial so far. We have not gone into the analysis of their findings yet, but we are eager to do so over the summer. Due to the uncertainty of how to interpret the regulation on internet information, we have stopped the internet controls. There is an uncertainty how to interpret the rules, whether all the pages, whether they are mandatory to show the energy label and the product data sheet on all pages where the products are shown with prices, or only on the pages where there is shown a shopping cart or a buy button. So this is our shopping cart dilemma. This question is raised in the Noregs, which Kirsti told you is a coordination group through the Nordic countries on the team of surveillance, and is under clarification. This spring we have also prepared a pilot on surveillance with the Eco-Design Directive. All the surveillance we have done so far has been with the energy labeling directive of products or buildings. We are planning a little pilot in order to learn slowly on how to do this surveillance, where we are asking a couple of producers of heat pumps to send in their declaration of conformity and their conformity assessments of the products in order that for our further inspections. We have also prepared a questionnaire to a large amount of importers of air conditioners. And this will be sent out soon. Our purpose with a large questionnaire is to increase NV's knowledge on how aware the market is on their duties related to Eco Design Directive and to CE marking especially. And also to increase the knowledge in the market that they actually have duties related to this. Optionally, we can pick out some of the respondents for deeper surveillance sooner if we choose to do so. Here is the findings from the shop controls of 2016. As you can see, the number of products that we controlled in the shops are shown here at the left, where yellow is the amount of televisions, the gray is the amount of vacuum cleaners, and the orange is the amount of washing machines. We do find a lot of energy labels missing in the shops, especially tied to televisions. Other things we were finding is that the energy label has been misplaced. There are quite strong regulations on exactly how it should be designed and where it should be placed on the product. But what we find is the most important is, of course, that it is present so that the consumer can buy the products with enough information to do a good choice, especially based on energy consumption. The shops were informed in advance of the controls that we were coming, or that NAMCO was coming to control them. Without that, I think we would have been finding even more non-conformities in the shops. In the internet shops, in addition to energy labeling, we also controlled whether there were datasheet present and the design of the datasheet. I don't know if you see what is here, but the blue line is new for internet controls and is lamps or light bulbs. You find very much light bulbs without any energy labeling at all in the internet shops. So there are much work to do there to clear up in the market. That's not the main findings. Here, energy label misplaced is household washing machines. Actually, I don't know why the results have been like this. These results are with the interpretation that the energy label and the datasheet shall be shown on every pages and not only where the shopping cart is. As you see here, the commercials has been divided into TV commercials, flyers, and web ads. The column at the left shows the amount of controlled products, and the column of the right shows the products with the lack of showing the energy class. So there is 100% wrong in TV commercials. It's a low number control, but I think that gives us an indication anyway. And televisions, you see, there is no energy class given on the flyers, and there are also quite low compliance level at the web ads. What we see is washing machines, the regulations have been at place for a much longer period. Already in 1996 there were demands to energy label washing machines. But the televisions and the vacuum cleaners are much newer regulations. And not at least when it comes to heating pumps, the regulations are very new. So what we do see is that there is more compliance of washing machines than it is on televisions and water and air heating pumps. So the process when we do reactions on these guys, throughout the process, the dealers have had a chance to comment our findings and also to correct our findings before we do reactions on them. All cases, except for one, we have just closed with a letter where we point out their duty to follow the rules. All the dealers have corrected or at least tried to correct, and so we have let them go quite easy this time. But if you catch them again next time, we will react somehow stronger. One case we find was so severe that we are chosen to follow this up closer, where we demand them to correct this, and we will give them a daily fine until it is corrected. This was a store that had a large TV department, and almost none of the TVs were energy labeled at all. So our main conclusions from the surveillance is that the rules are quite complex. It's not that easy to know whether you have accomplished conformity or not. And also for our part, we have to go quite slowly forward when we are going to increase our surveillance. The market needs some more information about the duties, and at least I think they need some more experience with that the authority actually do control them to get this somehow better. Thank you.
Are there any questions to Felle? If there are no questions, then maybe then it's a... Okay, one, sorry.
Yeah. Well, is your general conclusion is that these rules about labeling and is really not working because of the bad compliance?
I think they are quite slippery about it. Some stores have good routines, but most of them don't have so good routines. Our washing machines, it's mostly good in the stores, but on the internet shops, it's quite randomly how it's done. So I think they need just more information, but also more awareness that we are actually out there to control this.
Thank you.
Okay, the next presentation is about the EU winter package, the law coming from EU through the EU agreement. Anton, please.
Yes, thank you. I have the privilege of talking about the winter package, the enormous package that everyone talks about. How many people have heard about the winter package? Okay, raise your hands, yes. So it's familiar. So you probably know most of what I'm going to say. Like many other countries, we are looking into the package and trying to find out what this actually means for us, and if it's going to bring the Norwegian energy system on the right track. The system, the package, has 8 new legislative proposals. It's built up with a foundation with the market design initiative. laying the framework for incorporating more intermittent production. And then you have 3 pillars in a way. You have the Renewable Energy Directive proposal with 30% target on the one side, and then on the other side you have the proposed Energy Efficiency Directive with the 30% target. And in between those two you have Energy Performance and Building Directive that both stimulate to energy savings and also stimulate for more distributed production. So it's and that's quite a new feature of traditionally it's been a more energy efficiency directive, but we see more elements of renewables coming into it. Like you all know, it's very complex, and this is a slide that was shown at EFTA meeting by the Commission. It shows how the different directives are interlinked. In this case, to the Renewable Energy Directive. There are many articles that directly or indirectly influence each other. And when we look at this complex material, we need to understand in which direction this takes Norway if we choose to take this directive. Especially Norway, like Iceland, a very high share of renewables, and in particular in the electricity production. In the transport sector, we are not so renewable as yet, and the heating and cooling is quite low here, but because we use a lot of electricity for heating, it's kind of misguiding this figure for heating and cooling. The EU wants to go from 29% renewables in the electricity production to 48% renewables in electricity. Norway is already here at 98% renewables. So again, we need to make sure that make sure that the preconditions of different countries are taken into account when you look at this new proposal on this new package. So there are 3 main messages that we communicate to the Commission and other relevant in the EU. We would like a strong emphasis on developing efficient energy markets. This is because we want an efficient utilization of our energy resources, and also because we want an effective transition to a low emission economy. The other message that we communicate is we want a flexible and market-based approach in meeting the 2030 goals. Again, we need to make sure that we take into account the preconditions that the different countries have, like Norway has a high renewable shares. This must be reflected. We need flexibility to meet the 2030 goals. And this is the last point is the coherent approach. Overlapping measures relates to the emissions scheme and how energy efficiency and increased renewables influence the level of the ETS market. One area that in particular has been a very Norway has been a very very active country, is the emphasis on electric vehicles. We have grown from under 5,000 electric vehicles in 2010 to around 110,000 electric vehicles in 2017. This effort drives energy efficiency, it reduced emissions, and also increases our renewable share. So this is an example of an area one can tackle or go into. That was it. Any questions? Yes?
Maybe about this one, the infrastructure, was there a big need for, so say, strengthening the distribution system and what about the housing, the apartment houses? Were they able to, shall we say, power the vehicles at home?
Do you have any? No. The studies that we have done on electric vehicles show that the infrastructure, like the distribution network, is able to handle this these new electric vehicles. These are of course like initial studies that we have done, but yeah, so currently we don't see any big difficulties. Someone else have any? Yeah.
I think there has been a discussion about that there's 3,000 missing, or that industry or other parts of society have said that we need more to be deployed around the country. But then also the batteries are getting better and better, so then they will also have longer storage that you can go even further. I don't know how far you can go now, if it's more than or close to 200 kilometers.
200, I think it's...
Yeah, for the newer ones, but still there is some parts of society think that there is a lack of infrastructure.
Most of the vehicles are concentrated mainly in the main cities.
So if you want to travel further around the country, which is a long country, then
yeah.
And also when it comes to the distribution network, if we can steer the charging to charge during the night, for example, there will be no problems. But if you charge during peak time, there will be lack of capacity quite fast.
And I think there's also discussion on how, well, for new buildings, for new housing, that there needs to be infrastructure when you build a new one, or if you do big refurbishment of existing. But I think that is just an ongoing discussion.
You're referring to the package? Yeah. Because in the package there is a requirement of 10 charging points, I think. Yes. To what?
It is with new battery technologies, faster charging, and that's linked to the houses. It is a risk of fire if you don't have that installed in the proper way. You cannot, not necessarily like before, just plug it into any kind of socket. And the other thing is also that normally what the new cars that are on the coming now this year and next year, they will definitely have 30 to 40 or 300. How much is this? 30? No, it mean 300 kilometers to 400 kilometers, even if you don't have a Tesla.
Yeah.
But then again, also there are some different information on batteries.
Yeah.
Are there battery minerals for the battery technologies. There are someone say yes, others say no. So, well, it depends.
Yeah.
Can I just, sorry. But that is also where the circular economy kicks in, because then you would need to recycle all the batteries to take out the minerals that are in the batteries to reuse. But then it could still be that there isn't enough in the future.
Yeah, and I think also it's new minerals. It's not the old batteries have no value.
No.
In the new technology.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic.
Maybe one short question. The world building packets is a big world. It's a lot of committees, a lot of working groups, a lot of legal stuff. How do you participate in working groups in Brussels? Working groups within the European Commission and EFTA? How do you, it's a lot of activities and work.
Yes, and the ministry is following this quite closely with other member states as well, and Iceland is always involved, I think, in terms of the EFTA cooperation. So I think it's a joint effort with different countries. Norway is a very small country in comparison to most of the European countries as well. So I think the approach that the ministry has taken is that you need a joint approach.
But do you participate? Do you go to Brussels, or is it the ministry, or do you have persons in Brussels that are participating?
It's a combination, but we participate in some groups on behalf of the ministry. For instance, the governance regulation, we've been participating in an expert group. But of course, we're not participating in the political discussions in the parliament. So that's why we need to have some, to put our views to the Swedes or to the Danes, to make them talk our view, I think. But and that's what I think all the ministries in Norway which are involved in this winter package use their connections for topics that we think are important enough.
Yes.
It is a good question from Balder, because last week, Monday, Tuesday, I was in Brussels, and that was a hydropower and fish workshop together with the EU, and it was actually an organized activity by IA Hydro and EU. And there I learned for the first time that they actually have a working group on hydro. And I have never heard about it. So apparently there are things going on. And of course hydro affects Norway, definitely also Iceland. So it should be interesting to be behind the wall and look what are they actually saying, discussing.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Okay. Thank you, Anton. And last one is Christina, speaking on electricity market.
All right, I have the pleasure of being the last speaker. That's always nice. So I'm going to be short since we're out of time already. This picture actually says it all. This is a Norwegian power market. The blue line is the inflow of water to the Norwegian reservoirs over the air from week 1 to week, not 51, but 52. And the gray line is the consumption of electricity in Norway, which is high during the winter and low during the summer. And I guess you have the same inflow profile here in Iceland as we have in Norway. There's all the precipitation comes as snow during the winter, and then the snow melts, you get a lot of inflow, and then you get some rain during the autumn, and then it starts falling as snow again by the end of the year. As you see, there's a huge gap between the inflow and the resources we get from above to the consumption and the need for electricity. So the savior of our system is our reservoirs. We have 86.5 terawatt hours of storage capacity in Norway. And if you compare this graph with the last one, you see that when the precipitation falls as snow, we take from the reservoirs and we empty them. When the snow melts, we fill them up, and that happens again and again. Adding the production profile, we see that, this is the average of the last 5 years. So we see that the production is a little bit higher than the consumption. Last year we had a production of 148.8 terawatt hours. The consumption was 132.3 terawatt hours. So we had a net export of electricity from Norway equal to 16.5 terawatt hours. We monitor the power market. Energy security is very important. That was in week 20, and we had an inflow of 8 terawatt hours in 1 week. This obviously led to, here is the lighter blue line here, to an increase in the reservoir filling. And this was due to the snow melting. The red line here is the snow melting this year, the snow reservoir this year. We also monitor the wind power production in Denmark and Sweden. The graphs behind here is last year, and these ones are this year. And we see that it varies very much from week to week, and we highly see that on the exchange pattern and the power prices. When there's a lot of wind power production in Denmark and Sweden, we see the power prices falling, and we import a lot of electricity from both countries. And then we just stop producing hydropower in Norway and store it to weeks where there are less wind producing in Sweden and Denmark. And we can sell our valuable hydropower electricity when the prices are higher. That's the beauty of the reservoirs. And here is the net exchange of power last year and this year from Norway. And we see that it's mainly negative, meaning that we have net export most weeks. And the last graph I'm going to show you is this one. It shows the prices in different areas of Europe. This one is southwest Norway. This is Sweden, the Netherlands, and Germany. And the dots, they show the average price, the daily average price, and the lines is the maximum price and the lowest price during the day. As you can see, this is from the last quarter of 2016, but the pattern is usually like this. And as you can see in Norway, it's very flat. There are not that much variability in the price, not over the day and not over from 1 month to another either. It's quite stable, and that's because we can manage the reservoirs, so we can always move 1 unit of energy from 1 hour with low price to an hour with higher price, and then even out the prices over the year, month, and hours. we see that Netherlands, Germany and Sweden, they have much more wind power than we have. And the wind power is setting the price in more and more hours. In Germany, you also have a feed-in system, meaning that the wind power producers, they can bid into the market negative prices. So you see here is 0. There are a lot of hours with negative prices in Germany, which obviously also affect us, but we mainly then import energy and store our hydropower to hours without sun and without wind. So that's the story of the Norwegian flat prices, and that was about what I was gonna say. So thank you.
Must be some questions regarding this. Jon? No? Maybe one question regarding the North Pole market.
Yeah.
How important is that in your system?
That's the most important in our system. All the producers and the consumers have to bid in their production or their need of electricity in the day ahead market. So you bid in at 11 o'clock the day before you're gonna use it or produce it for every single hour during the day. And then you get the market cross, which sets the price, and that happens every single day. And then you have 2 more markets. You have the regulating market and the more balancing market that are closer to the hour where you're going to produce or use the unit.
And maybe this was it, and it was quite a great. We thank our dear guests from Norway for all these very high quality, informative presentation, and that will be stored on our website. And also thanks to the guests being here and also on the internet. All these presentations will be on internet also, and it's a great value. And I think there is some leftover questions they can mail to you. There's a mail here on your presentation, and there's a maybe opportunity for closer cooperation and more work. Thanks a lot again, and it was a great pleasure to have you here.